Hi, my name is Zarna Garg. Thank you so much for having me. Namaste. And I would put my mother-in-law in my Immigrant Jam.
Oh my goodness, oh my God, we are back with another beautiful brand new episode of Immigrant Jam, the podcast. I'm your host, Lucy Pohl. This is so exciting. Thank you for coming back to us. If you've been here before, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are new, welcome to the beautiful land of Immigrant Jam, the podcast where we celebrate all things immigrant, talk to the coolest, most interesting, funniest, most amazing immigrants in town. And today we truly have a amazing woman here, a woman who has taken the comedy world by storm, one of my favorite people in this city. It is the amazing comedian Zarna Garg. Zarna has a special coming out in 2023 and she's on tour right now, okay, with her show One in a Billion. So what are you doing? What are you waiting for? Get on the ticket sales. Go and buy a ticket. Zarna, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And Lucy, I love working with you. We did an outstanding show in Brooklyn. I'll never forget it. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And you were off the charts hosting the thing. The vibe was spectacular. So thank you for doing that. So excited to be doing this.
Thank you. Zarna, you have completely taken, as I said, the comedy world by storm. Your story is so fascinating and so amazing. You've told it a million times, but would you mind telling us one more time how you got here, also how you got to this country, and how you got to being this force of nature, this amazing light on the comedy scene?
Oh my God, if only my family could hear all these things, because they think quite the opposite. I mean, I was thrown out of India, all but thrown out for speaking too much and saying all the wrong things as a child, you know.
Wow.
So I was almost 15 when my mom passed suddenly. And my dad, I was the youngest of 4 kids. 3 above me were already arranged and married. So my dad, the next day after my mom's death, said, you need to get arranged.
Wow.
Yeah.
15.
Yeah,
At 15.
But you know, back where I come from, it's not as young as it sounds here.
Right.
I understand. Like my siblings were arranged by 16, 17 anyway. And it's normal back then, 30 years ago, it wasn't such a big deal. Mm-hmm. It still isn't in most of India.
And Kansas.
Yeah. Well, who knew those two had something in common? But now we know. So I think I never really, I grew up on a steady diet of American pop culture. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a lot of affluence in India. I like to call myself the original riches to rags story. I had it all and then found a way to lose it. But I grew up watching Three's Company, the TV show. You remember? Do you remember that show?
I remember that show, although I was 8 when we moved here in the 90s, and that was already gone. Yeah. But I remember it.
But it was iconic. It was that music coming, knock on my door. It was iconic. Then I grew up reading Archie's comics. Mm-hmm. I grew up with all that. And when my dad said, you need to get arranged, I was like, but why? No one on these shows does. Like Archie is kissing Veronica and Betty, and there's no one's dad is even there. I was like, why do I have to, so I was a troublemaker from the get-go. Uh-huh. And he's like, okay, well, if you don't want to get married, you can't stay home. And, I think he was trying to call my bluff, scare me into submission. Mm-hmm. But when you're 15 and somebody says you can't stay home, in your mind, you're thinking endless pajama parties with your friends.
Of course. Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't need to stay home. What do I need home for? Yeah. And I just left, with no plan, really, except that I'll go to my friend's house. And after,
to live there?
Well, I didn't really think it through. Yeah. Because until that moment, we were dying to be together. When you're a teenager and you're dying to hang with your friends. Yes. So I didn't really think through the whole, what would I do? And after 2 days of goofing around at my friend's house, her mother was like, my mom thinks you should go. Oh, God.
Turns out 3 is not company.
Yeah. And then reality hit. And then I was like, oh, now what do I do? I can't really go home because I was scared. And I also had too much of an ego to like accept that he may have been right. Like he had predicted, oh, you're friends. We're going to see how long that lasts, you know. But I had too much of an ego to be like, he might have been right. So I was, you know, out there couch surfing between friends and, you know, whatever I could to stay warm that day. And I now trace back my comedy roots to those days.
Yes.
Because I think a part of why I got invited to people's homes and stuff was because I was funny. Mm-hmm. People would be like, okay, call her for Diwali dinner. It's fine. She's funny. She makes people laugh. She keeps things light.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me until the last few years that, oh my God, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's my sister at the time was living in America. She was married and settled in Ohio, and she offered to take me in. That was the only person I knew who would be willing to take me in to live with. So I had to find my way to the U.S., which, as you know, not easy.
Yeah.
As an immigrant, you know, I make a lot of jokes. It's like people think, oh, immigrant this and that. It's very hard for everybody except the Canadians.
Yes, exactly.
There's always one Canadian in the audience who's like, it's not so hard. We just drove in. Okay, for the rest of us, it is really hard.
Yes.
So I figured out how to, you know, make it happen. I came here as a student. My sister helped me.
So at 15, 16 at that point?
Yeah, I was 16. It took a year and a half to figure it out. And my sister, then I lived with her in Ohio, and she was very, very understanding, her and her husband. They were like, you don't need to get married. You study, you do what you need to do, what you want to do. And I was always that person who was super curious, like curious to a fault. I wanted to learn everything about everything. So to me, this was a dream situation, except I was at my sister's house. So I was very mindful to not overstay my welcome. You know, she had her own family and all. So I did college and law school with her. And then I met my husband online 25 years ago. It's a whole another bit.
On AOL Messenger?
Yeah, on AOL though. Not Messenger, but AOL is a part of the story. Yeah,
oh my God. No way.
Yeah, AOL is part of the story. And we met and, you know, we moved. So at the time when we met, he was working in Switzerland and I was in Cleveland doing my law school. So we met here at JFK because I was moving here for my first law job. Then he said, I can't leave my job. So I quit my job in New York and moved to Switzerland to be with him. But by then he found another job in Sweden. So we ended up in Sweden.
Wow.
I thought, okay, you know what? I've been in America a few years. I'm kind of tired. I'm happy. I was trying to find my way back home, to be honest. But then we were in Sweden for a while and it was like, all right, this is fun. Like, I don't know what we're going to do. We're trying to figure it out. And then he got into business school in New York. And so we were back in New York.
But so that means that was the third time you were an immigrant. America, Switzerland, and Sweden.
I mean, it's like I didn't really immigrate to Switzerland because I knew it was not permanent. But Sweden, there was a good chance that we were going to be there for a while. So I did try to figure out what the immigrant community is there. And it's really funny because by then I had lived in America for 7-8 years. So I wasn't sure, do I introduce myself as an Indian or an American?
Right, of course.
To Sweden.
Yeah.
You know, wherever I went, they would be like, where are you from? And I would be like, India, but America, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's like a little of this, a little of that.
Of course.
And so much of my formative years were in America. So it was interesting to see what that world would be like. And, you know, people here loved, oh my God, America is the worst. Like, there's so much self-hate.
Yes.
Go to other countries. You can come running back.
Yeah. But when you came here first as a 16-year-old, did, you know, having grown up watching, as you said, Three's Company and reading the comics and stuff like that, did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed your expectations? Were you disappointed? How was that experience finally coming here after
I realized how lonely life was here. If I could use one word that encapsulates the difficulties of being an immigrant in America, or being an American person, I think it's that the overall loneliness really gets you. I think if you've never lived anywhere else, I think immigrants feel it a lot more because many of us come from very warm, community-based cultures.
Right.
So I came from a world where neighbors and aunts and uncles and people just stopped by for tea and nothing was scheduled. Nothing was scheduled. The wedding was barely scheduled. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yes.
They would be like, all right, next weekend's a good weekend to do the wedding. And then you come here and everything is like, do you want to meet for coffee in March? You know, I'm like, what? So it was a little getting used to. But, you know, I was just so in love with my new freedom to learn. I didn't really ever want freedom to do bad things. Like, I was never that kid who went drinking and party. That was never me. I just wanted freedom to learn and be in school and do all this intellectual stuff that excited me. And I just appreciated that so much that nothing else mattered.
And in India at that time, that even if say you would have gotten arranged and married, would you have been able to study and do all those things, or was that not possible at the time?
I think it would have been unlikely because, you know, think of the profile of a person who gets arranged to a 16, 17-year-old girl.
Right, of course.
Generally, that person is a little old-fashioned,
Right.
little more wanting to control the
Right.
person's experience.
Right.
So education is an antithesis to all of that. You know, and that's part of why my dad was like, we can't. She's already talking nonsense. You know, the more she goes to school, the worse it's going to get. So, you know,
And he was
otherwise,
right.
He was right.
Right. No, but I think it's so interesting. It's a really important point, I think, because it's something that, you know, a lot of people don't think about here. The freedom to learn, like you said, not to do bad shit, but how underappreciated it is that, you know, in this country, a lot of people
look
have
at what's
this freedom.
happening in Iran right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you consider what they're fighting for, it's
Right.
actually mind-blowing.
Yeah. Completely.
They're not fighting for anything remotely edgy. They just I know for a fact that I have a big following among the brown nations, as I like to call them, the Middle East,
Yeah.
South Asia, even the Far East,
Yeah.
to be honest. So many of those women watch my videos in secrecy.
Wow.
What am I doing? What am I doing? You know what I
Just
mean?
because you're a woman on stage.
I'm a woman on stage with a mic and an
Right.
opinion, possibly making fun of men,
Right.
possibly making fun of the culture or the religious aspects of the culture, not even really religious jokes, but like adjacent. And it's like they're too scared to even be seen watching my videos. Can you believe? Like, just look at this. I mean, is this porn? You know what I mean? Like, what? When I first realized that people were hiding and watching my videos and sending them to their friends and sisters and aunts and grandmas in secret,
Crazy.
I was like, but why? You know what I mean? I'm making jokes about my husband, but then making jokes about my husband. That's a big deal.
Right.
In a lot of places.
Right. Of
It's
course.
not as accepted as I didn't think it through, honest to God. When I entered comedy, I didn't think it through at all. I was a stay-at-home mom for 16 years.
Right.
Under a rock, diapers, music lessons, the whole baby thing, right? So when I came out from under it, I assumed that there were a million other comics doing everything, and I just didn't know about it.
Right.
And then the more I did it, the more people were like, you're a pioneer, you're a trailblazer. I was like, oh my God, no. I'm not blazing anything. You know, Martin Luther King had a dream. I have bills. I'm just trying to pay my bills. But the more I've done it, the more I realize how few people like me do this.
Of course.
And
yeah.
how humor is vilified. Like, if women are having a good time or if they're laughing out loud, that's like
Dangerous.
vulgar.
Yeah,
It's
vulgar
like
and dangerous. It threatens. It's threatening to people and to men.
I mean, it never occurred to me, and here I am in like some sort of middle of that tornado myself.
Does it make you feel some sort of responsibility now that you like? Does it make you suddenly approach it differently, or knowing that there's these women watching your clips in secrecy, or you know, looking up to you and seeing you as an inspiration to them?
I mean, I never thought it through. But the more time passes and the more like my inbox, my DMs, my messenger, it's like exploding with you're inspiring us. We want to do it. I have helped so many people get started in comedy wherever they are. I spend an insane amount of time trying to find like where could they go for an open mic in this city.
Wow.
Because I want to help them all get started.
Right.
And now I feel a sense of responsibility. And also there's an age thing, even just in America. Like by mainstream journalists in America, it's like, at your age, you start. I was like, I don't really feel that old.
But thanks for making me feel old.
But I guess I am.
I love that.
You know, I just did it.
How can you walk on your own to up the stairs of the stage every day? You're like, I'm not.
I mean, the
I'm in
thing
my 40s.
is that's ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
a way, I'm glad I didn't think it through. Because had I researched when to start stand-up comedy, probably like 21 would have been the ideal age. And
Right.
I would have been like, oh, I don't know.
But do you think that's also something that comes out of the experience of being an immigrant, that you don't really have time to think about anything because you have to do,
100%
survive, you know, like trailblaze, even if it's just for yourself and nobody and not for, you know, the public, but you don't have time. It's like such a common theme. And I'm so fascinated by that like particular subject of, you know, is the character trait there before, or does the experience of being an immigrant turn you into this person that is a trailblazer by necessity because you have to be, you know?
I think it's the one meets the other,
Right.
and things emerge.
Right.
I agree with you that is part of being an immigrant. It's just so much work putting the first set of stakes in a new country.
Yeah.
And building that first foundation for the family, the first home, figuring out school, college. I mean, I'm in the midst of college. My daughter's in college now. So that's been a whole journey and a revelation. I've made so many mistakes. It's not even funny. But,
Or
you know,
in your case, it is funny. We're going to make it funny.
Thankfully. But absolutely what you said is accurate.
And so now, because you touched on that a little bit on the like, you know, I'd go to Sweden and I wouldn't know, am I American? Am I Indian? What am I? What do you feel now?
I mean, I was born an Indian woman. I'm going to die an Indian woman. There's a part of me that will never not be Indian.
Right.
Because that's just, I start every single day with the Indian newspaper. Also because I need the material. and the Indian news is like, you don't have to go far. You know what I mean? The front page will give it to you. But what I have become a symbol of is so American. I myself never thought of this as a job. Living here for 20-something years, when my daughter first said to me, you should do stand-up comedy, I was like, that's not a job. Who does that for money? You get paid to do that? And then my kids ganged up on me and said, oh, you're too scared to try it. Like, you know, all these years I made them try different things.
Yeah, right.
And then suddenly they turned and ganged up on me. So when I went to the first open mic I ever went to, and I got on stage, I was like, white people do this? Like, my mind was blown that this could be a job. Or a skill of some sort. So what it stands for today and what I stand for within this stand-up community is so American that I've really become this hybrid. Indian American has its own. Because if you ask any other comic who knows me, they'll be like, she's the Indian woman.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing they know about me. And yet, to the whole Indian community, I'm the symbol of all things American.
Yeah. But you joke about it. Like you joke about the bindi, for example, right? On stage.
Of course.
You say, like, I don't wear this or I don't need this.
It's a PR thing.
Yeah.
I have to address it because I know the minute I step on that stage, people are speculating. Is this an act? They think, is this a costume? Is this kurta real? I happen to live this way my whole life, but I understand the skepticism, and I like to address it right off up top.
And so you talk also about, getting a lot of shit from your community and from people in your community saying, how could you do this? And it's embarrassing. But of course, on the outside, it always seems like, oh my God, how are you this person that isn't affected? But I'm sure it does affect you in some way. It must be.
It does. But, I'm an Indian woman, and at some level, I'm a woman and you're a woman. You'll understand this. Like, I like to say I've been surviving cancel culture since birth because literally everything I ever wanted to do was a problem.
Yeah.
Going to school was a problem. Wanting to laugh was a problem. Not wanting to marry but date was a problem. So now I'm putting all these opinions out and it's a new problem. You know what I mean? Like at some level, I'm desensitized to it because I have had to do what I want to do to be true to myself my whole life. And I think a lot of women, Indian or not, understand that. So much of what we do is a problem for everybody else. And now I'm just kind of over it.
Yeah.
I get a lot of hate on social media and I'm like, just unfollow me. People, they're like, why do we have to listen to her? I'm like, you don't.
You don't. Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, actually,
you can go away.
Let me help you. You know what I mean? Like, you're here to why? The thing that hurts me is that a lot of times they will look up my family and go after them. They look up my husband, my in-laws. I remember what happened. What was the event that happened? My in-laws, something happened in comedy, and my in-laws got emails all night. Your daughter-in-law is a murderer, and it's nothing to do with anything. Somebody died in India or something, and they're like, she killed them with her jokes. What?
Oh my God.
Nothing. It had no basis in anything. And my poor in-laws can't even barely speak English.
No.
So they woke up to like a flood of texts and emails.
Saying you're a murderer?
Saying that their daughter-in-law had done. And like they were kind of used to having like all kinds of things happen with me.
And now they're like, she's even more American than we thought. She's become a murderer now, too, on top of it.
So that is a little, I mean, my family, Judgewood, I'm really blessed. They all understand what I'm doing and they're all with me. But that is the one thing I regret is that they get a lot of hate. My husband gets hate on the daily. You let your wife do this. What kind of man are you? Do you even control your woman? I mean, luckily he's so American and so New York, and he's like, do whatever. Honestly, he doesn't even know how to read half the replies. And a lot of hate I get is actually translated in Hindi.
Oh, really?
So my kids can't understand it.
So your kids don't speak Hindi?
They speak it, but they don't read or write it.
Ah, okay.
So they have no idea what the written words are. They might be able to tell some things, but...
Yeah.
And now they're all kind of firmly behind what I'm doing. They come to all my shows. They see the effect I have.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But if you're a woman and if you're an ethnic woman, you're kind of used to don't do this, don't do that your whole life.
Right.
And at 47 today, I'm just over it. Hashtag over it. Like,
Yeah.
I do not need anybody's opinion on how I'm going to be living my life for real.
And so your husband was on board from the start?
From the start. I mean, we didn't realize it would become this.
Of course not. Yeah. How could you have?
We thought we'll do a few shows, a few people will come out, and then that will be the end of it. And then I'll go on and do something else, like write. I thought I wanted to be a screenwriter. I learned how to write a screenplay. So I was like, okay, we'll transition to whatever's next. But then this stand-up comedy thing just grew and grew and kept growing. And now even we go to places, we're like, who are all these people? Because they didn't expect it. But it's such a if you come to my shows, and we've done shows together, they're filled with so much warmth and love.
Yeah.
That, like, how are you not going to like it? It's the one thing this world needs right now. Is a warm spot, a warm place where you can go and not feel like you're being judged and just sit back and laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everybody's behind it, including my sons who are so embarrassed.
But you said that you would put your mother-in-law on the Immigrant Jam just because you like to tease her, or do you want to make her into a paste and eat her?
Well, I mean, make her into a paste. I may not necessarily eat her myself, but here's the thing. If Indian people don't make fun of their in-laws, we don't. They're sacred cows. They've historically been.
Oh, they are.
The mother of your husband. She could be Cruella de Vil, and you're not allowed to say anything about
Wow, I didn't know that.
So mother-in-law jokes in America and in other cultures.
Super common. Yeah.
It's a trope.
Yeah.
Every TV serial has it. Like, if you think about it, right? Indian mother-in-law has not been explored in that way at all. So to me, it's my USP. When I, in my set, enter the space where I'm going to talk about my mother-in-law, the Indians erupt. They're like
That's so
all
cool.
their feelings that they've had hidden, buried inside, just like out on stage. So it's become something that people look forward to sharing with me and hearing my voice on.
And she doesn't mind.
You know what? She's a sneaky one. She could not speak a word of English until last year. Until last year, 24 years I've been in her family. On my birthday, I might, if I'm lucky, get one balloon emoji. One balloon. Do you understand how cheap you have to be when you're like skimping on the emojis? And then this year she called me and she's like, I have an agent. She has an agent because she thinks I'm going to need her.
She has an agent?
In India. Because she thinks I'm going to need her in my act and in my TV shows and in my reality show.
She has like an acting agent?
She
like
has,
a performing agent?
She's like, suddenly she went from...
Oh my God, that is so funny.
She went from not knowing a word of English and what is happening to, I'm prepared, Hollywood, let's go.
She's like, I got my boobs done, a nose job.
Her hair has been dyed, she's cut it short. Like, what are you doing? Every time I talk to her, something new has happened. She's wearing a new outfit. I'm like, what are you doing? And she said,
ready.
I'm ready. Let's go.
She's ready for the sitcom or the reality show. Oh my God, that is so funny, Zarna. But they're in India.
They're in India.
But
she comes
so
here for
funny.
3 months at a time.
Oh, no.
That's a whole another immigrant life, right? You're visiting relatives. They just come and they stay. When you talk to American people, they're like, oh, grandparents are coming for 2 days. Where are they going to stay? No, they're going to stay with me.
Yeah.
If we're all sleeping on the ground, in the kitchen, in the bathroom, we're all staying together.
Yeah.
That's how we roll. And she comes usually for 3 months at a time. Yeah.
Wow.
I like to say winter is coming.
I can't get over that she has an agent. That is so funny. She has a book deal already. She's all set.
She's all set. She's like, let's go. I mean, suddenly she's American, sitting in a village in India.
Your dad is still alive?
No, he passed too many years ago.
Okay.
He, in the end, died without speaking to me. So I lost that relationship. When I moved to America, he never spoke to me again.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you think, what do you think he would have said now?
Nothing good.
No, he wouldn't have liked it?
No.
He wouldn't have been proud?
No.
No? Okay.
No. Because if you're from that world that believes this is not what women do,
Right.
there's nothing to be proud of.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
There are millions of people who are embarrassed by what I do. And that's just a fact that they have to accept and I have to accept, and it is what it is.
But do you want to change it? Like, do you?
No.
No.
No, because I don't want to spend any energy. I want to be who I am and spread my message. If my message ends up changing minds and hearts, great. But there's so many people who are actively seeking me out and wanting to be part of this world that I don't even want to spend a minute on those who resist me.
Right.
Why would I waste my, it was so few energy units in a day. And comedy shows, as you know, sometimes I do 2 1-hour shows back to back or 5 15-minute spots.
Right.
I don't have the energy. I save it all. If somebody's in my audience, has bought the ticket money, has maybe hired a babysitter or made plans around me, booked it, relatives have driven in or flown in, they are going to get 100% of me. And everybody else, I have nothing to do with.
Do you think it would have been different if you would have started earlier? Do you think that is something that comes with your wise old age of 47?
I don't
know. But like if you
know.
would have been in your 20s?
Yeah, there are days when I know I lost a gig because of my age. And that's fine. And I wish I had started 20 years ago. Why didn't I discover? But this is how it was meant to be. And I do think that a big reason people connect with me is because of my family-based storytelling, which what would I talk about 20 years ago? I would have, I don't know what I would have had to really talk about. So, life played its way out the way.
And your confidence, like or I guess the way that, you have found, it seems like you found your center in yourself. You know who you are. And I feel like that is something now that I'm getting older that I'm actually enjoying about getting older.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I'm better at what I do because of that, So in a way, I kind of feel the opposite of you. Sometimes I'm like, fuck, I wish I would have just had a different career for my early years and just gone and done something completely different instead of being so like, I have to just do this, always this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now I feel much better about myself and I care less about what people think. And do you know what I mean? So it's funny because, my boyfriend also was a lawyer. And turned comedian, and sometimes I'm like, wow, I wish I would have been a lawyer in my previous life. That sounds
you
cool.
don't wish that. That's like $100,000 of debt and all these years. I mean, nothing. I credit my legal writing skills because I'm still to this day licensed to practice in New York. I credit my legal writing skills for my comedy writing because it helped me put structure.
Oh yeah.
But oh my God, it took me, I would say 10 years to pay off the debt to go to law school. And it's at some point, I'm like, why did, I just loved it all so much that I just kept going. But the cost of it, it's not small. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So in some way, I like that if you just listen, learning can happen anywhere.
That's true. That's very true.
You don't need to be in a school, at a job. If you're curious, you're going to learn no matter what.
Yeah, very true.
So, we just all have our own different paths, and hopefully it wasn't a very expensive path.
Yeah, for sure. That's so funny. So what do you love about America?
Oh my God, where to begin?
Really?
Yeah.
So you love this country?
100%. Are you kidding me? There's no chance I could be who I am almost anywhere else. Not even Switzerland, Sweden. In theory, free countries, but they judge way more harshly than anybody in America.
So
People
true.
always say, oh, move to another country. I mean, Canada is always, move to Canada, like poor Canada. Like they're like, no, please don't.
Yeah, please go away.
No, I think America is, for me, could not be a more perfect place. There have been ups and downs. I'll tell you, loneliness has been my number one thing in this country. There's a lot that could be better for everybody, for all Americans, not just me as an immigrant, for all of us. But when you put together the totality of what it is, like it's nothing even comes close. We raise our kids. I'm raising my kids here in freedom. They can do whatever they want. That's why, when immigrants and their kids get into it, it's like, the kids just can't fathom what the parents are saying, and we cannot fathom what the problem is.
Yeah.
It's the classic.
You have everything.
Yeah, exactly. We were fighting to just read a newspaper. I was that kid who wanted to read a newspaper every day and got yelled at every day. Why do you need to read a newspaper? You're a girl.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. My mom was in prison in East Germany for passing out flyers. Like flyers protesting something the government was doing. She went to prison. And yeah, I think about that a lot, you know, like, God, they come from a world that like I can't imagine at all. And exactly. I mean, a lot of kids of immigrants talk about this like guilt, right? The guilt they feel at having any problems at all because nothing measures up. So that's a whole different story. But that's so true. It's, you know.
But don't feel guilty. Just don't feel bad.
Yeah. No,
get over it.
Get over it. It's
get over it. But if I say that, like, ooh, she doesn't understand. If I like, God forbid, I say you don't need therapy, you need a job. God forbid, you know, because it's not cool to say that. But yeah, for me, no better place. And I say that as a really proud Indian woman here in America.
So what do you love about India then?
I mean, it's never not gonna be me, and I'm never not gonna be that. I will always be this whole thing, you know. It's just such a big part. Like, I go, anywhere I go, I'm like, what are we going to eat? Okay, so I'll give you an example. We filmed the 1 hour special that I filmed. And we filmed it at Gramercy Theater in New York City, where a lot of specials are filmed there, right? But when I had, in every production meeting, the one thing I was fixated on was like, what are people going to eat? How can I don't want to do this in a venue where there's no food. Because my people like to eat. I know my people, and they're going to be like, this is a shitty taping. We're not drinkers, we're eaters. So after the third time I brought it up, the producer is like, why are you so worried about the food? Because he's like, well, do we need a camera here? And I'm like, what's my audience going to eat? Because that's the Indian mom in me. In the end, the producer arranged for samosas to be passed out in the line in the waiting room.
I love it.
Because I told him, I said, I will not be at ease until I know somebody has eaten something. Please, for God's sake, do something.
The special's out of focus, and you can't hear anything, but everybody got samosas.
Yes, exactly. And that made me happy and made them happy and brought that whole... If you see, like, you know, a lot of Insta posts from the people who were at the special, literally it was like, and we got samosas. It's like, you would think you saw Zarna, you were at this historic taping. No, samosa. Like, literally, my flyer was like in the background somewhere.
I love it.
But because I'm Indian and I know that excitement, I don't take offense. I was like, yes, this is why we did this.
I love that. That's great. Yeah. I love sayings and proverbs and things like that from, you know, different languages, cultures. I always think that they say so much about the mentality of the people.
Yeah.
So I always ask my guests if they have one they grew up with that they love or use a lot. Do you have one?
Yeah, I have a lot of sayings. I'm a quote junkie. Like, I subscribe to all, you know, all the quote things on all the platforms. One that I like to use a lot with my kids is that the man on top of the mountain didn't fall there.
I love it.
Because it's so easy to look at the person who's reached anywhere and just assume that it just happened.
It's so true.
It was a lucky break. It's never that. It's always a big steep climb and a whole effort that's involved in it. So that's one that I use with the kids a lot.
And that's an
actually
Indian
in
saying?
English.
An
No,
English
that's
saying.
just in English. I think we don't even know who said it. But it's one that I refer
Might
to
have
a
been
lot.
Ted Cruz, but fuck it. I'm kidding.
Another
I
one
love
that I love is that no one is more blind than the person who doesn't want to see. See, that's why when you said, what about the people who are haters? I'm like, they have chosen not to see the good in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Why am I going to waste my time on them?
Yeah.
There's
you're right.
7 billion people on earth. Go on with your hate. I actually have no desire to engage on it on any level, not try to stop you nor encourage it. You know, because once somebody has decided to see something a certain way, that's their vision. It's very difficult to change that. So I that's another one that I live by. You know, as a woman and as an auntie, we get into a lot like, but she doesn't understand, and she doesn't want to understand.
Right.
The problem is not that the facts are missing. The problem is that the mind is not open to this new idea.
Yeah.
So move on.
Yeah, and in a way, you know, I always feel very sorry for those people because they're less free than other people, you know.
But they control the option to change it. So
absolutely,
there's nothing for anybody on the outside to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. As an artist, you're not in the business of converting people. You know, like you said, you say what you say. And if people are affected by it, great. You know, and if not.
And nor are we in the business of contorting ourselves.
Right.
To appease somebody. That's not where it, you know, I get a lot of offers to perform in the Middle East, in some countries where I know that it's very hard to go as a performer. And then it comes with a list of stipulations, but don't talk about, I'm like, I can't, under these circumstances, like, could you imagine being up on stage for an hour and like, but don't, you know, I'm like, no, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
This is for somebody else.
Right, yeah.
Who can do all that. I'm not skilled enough to control my brain.
Or not interested in it. Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. It all sounds easy, you know, the way that you describe it, but I think as you said with that saying, you know, the man on top of the mountain didn't fall there. It is a daily thing, right?
Wow.
To live that way. You have to get up every day and choose to live that way. It's not, because I think, you know, that I love that saying, because I think that to a lot of people that see people like you or hear your story or even hear you talk so confidently and so sort of like enlightened about yourself and about other people.
I must be lying a lot on social media.
No, but it seems like I know that feeling from myself, especially when I was younger, that you think like, oh, you're born that way, or you're like that, or you're not like that. But I think it's really important to put that out there that no, it takes work, and you can choose that, you know, and make yourself into the thing that you want to be. It's not something that's not reachable for you just because you're not there now. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And it's never easy. I'm not even saying it for me. I'm saying it for anybody.
Yeah.
What you see and what it took to get to whatever you're looking at, it's never easy. I know a lot of people look at me too. They're like, you just showed up. I just showed up to you.
Right, exactly.
The long, bumbling road that it took to get here, like, I'm not even going to, it's so long you don't want to hear about it.
But I think that's, you know, again, like that is innate to a lot of immigrants that because there's so many obstacles in our way, things not being easy is just normal, as you said. Like, that's just the way it is. I remember the first time I went to Edinburgh to the festival, and everybody was like, oh my God, it's so hard, and you have to work so hard, and you have to do so much, and you're going to fall into a depression afterwards and be so exhausted. And I was like, I went, and after the month, I was like, what? This was like just life, like in New York. And every day, you know, you hustle, you try to get people to come to your shows. You're like hustling, working. So I think that is something that even, you know, like you said, you grew up in affluence. So you didn't have the obstacle, perhaps, of coming out of, you know, dire poverty. But even if you come here with a certain amount of privilege as an immigrant, just because you're an immigrant, there's obstacles every day.
Every day. And I was very astute. I decided to lose all my affluence before I came here. So there was the money stress, but you know, everything worked at a certain way. We made it work. And you're right that we're so used to it. And you know, New York comics, speaking of the experience of being a New York comic, you get pummeled to death here every night. So I think anywhere else in the world almost feels like a party.
Yes, so true.
There's so much comedy in New York and on every street corner, and you're fighting for the same audience half the time.
Yes, and people are like, a lot of times, like snooty audiences because they see so much. And every time you go outside of New York, you're like, this is great. People are so grateful. But at the same time, you know, when I get interviewed, a lot of people always go, oh my God, comedy is the hardest thing in the world. And I always say, you know what's the hardest thing in the world is doing something you don't love. Like waiting tables was the hardest thing in the world because I hated it so much. Like compared to that, it's like, yeah, it's work and it's hard and there's obstacles, but this is like easy compared to, you know, eating shit basically and banging your head against a brick wall, doing something you hate. Zarna Garg, I could talk to you for hours. I do something here on the podcast called the Poll Questionnaire.
Okay.
A very quick, very fun little questionnaire just to determine how much of an immigrant you really are. No.
Okay, no, but let's go for it. I'd love to find out.
Okay, Zarna Garg, the first of her name, Queen of Comedy, 1 in a billion. Are you ready for the poll questionnaire?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Zarna Garg, if you were president of the United States of America, what American food would you ban?
Ketchup. I know. I can't. I'm sorry.
Mike just died.
There are many other chutneys and dips to explore people. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, it's fine.
Did I just get myself on the deportation list?
Yes, and
I'm
that's why
gonna
we
get
do the
out of here
questionnaire.
and find immigration waiting.
ICE is outside the door, and you're gonna be force fed ketchup waterboarding. Okay, I like it. That's fine. I do love ketchup on everything, but that's okay. Zarna Garg, if you could add one face to Mount Rushmore, whose face would you add?
I would say Obama.
Okay,
I think it was a historic moment
that's true.
in our culture, and not just for the Black community, for all of us who are not white. So I think you may disagree with his policies and all, and I don't really know the policies of all who are on Mount Rushmore.
Right.
But what he stood for to the rest of us, the hope that he gave, I think he belongs up there. And if not him, Oprah.
That's
maybe a woman.
I love it.
You know what I mean? Why not a woman?
Or half Obama, half Oprah.
You know, maybe it's time.
Omopra. No, I don't know. Just O. Yeah. But I love that you said I don't know the policies of everybody on Mount Rushmore. That's such a good point.
No, because somebody is going to be like, well, do you know he did this in healthcare? I'm like, but do you know what those guys did? No one knows what they did back then. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know what he stood for. I know that he gave hope to millions of people who never thought they would live to see the day.
Yeah, this is true. This is very, very true. If you could add one amendment to the Constitution, the United States Constitution, what amendment
I would say add some amendment where people just hang out without a plan. It should be required. Everybody hit the streets and say hello to your neighbor. That should be legally required in this country.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
Because that's the one thing that's missing is that informal human connection.
Yeah.
There's so much good, and then everybody retreats into their own little corners. Like when you're from a country like where we're from, it's like, how you don't know your neighbor, you don't know who you live with, So I would make it legally required. Like 1 hour every week.
Show up at someone's house unannounced.
No, just everybody come out on the streets and say hello to each other and give each other a hug. I don't even care.
I mean, that's kind of what was the clapping during the pandemic. That's how I met my neighbor. I'm guilty too. I'd never talked to my neighbor. And we were like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were here. Who are you? And she's so cool. And then she made me masks and I made her banana bread. And
it became better, right? And then you're not talking anymore.
No, I moved. But then as soon as the pandemic ended, we were like, hi. and just like went into our apartments.
Yeah. See, we need to fix that.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
You're totally right. And it's not just funny. It also has there's a deeper thing to that too.
100%. I bet you if you talk to an immigrant from like a warm nation, like not Sweden. Although the Swedes were plenty warm. But if you talk to the people who come from the warm nations, it's the one thing they miss.
Yeah.
Is there's
Community.
no just walking in and having a cup of tea with somebody without making like a whole calendar invite, Zoom.
Yeah.
I'll call you, you call me, you send me a text, I didn't. Oh my God, we need to wrap it up. Hard out. Hard out.
We need to wrap it up.
Relax.
I love it. This coffee was great, but we need to wrap it up. Here's the light. I'm giving you the 5-minute light for this coffee. That's hilarious. Although that's one thing that my parents, I remember when we moved here, they were like, America's great. When you have dinner parties here, people leave after an hour and a half.
Oh.
In Europe, they stay for like 6 hours. They never leave. You have to kick them out. But here, they just go on their own. They eat and leave,
Yeah.
That's so true. It is. It's true. It's funny. And there's a very deep, sad. You're right. The loneliness is a big thing here, especially in New York. Zarna Garg, if you had to come up with a catchphrase for America, what would your catchphrase be?
It's possible here.
I love it. Okay. I love it. Great. Okay. 2 more questions. If you had to eat one American person, who would you eat?
Ooh, eat an American person? Wow. I was like, this is unexpected. But, I would have to choose somebody so delicious.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's a lot of like really delicious American personalities. Somebody who's just oozing joy and...
Oh.
Although, who would be easy to eat? Kelly Ripa. She's
Whoa,
tiny.
but she's so bony.
But she's tiny. And she in that little tiny frame of hers, she somehow manages to ooze so much warmth and she just lights the screen up. I recently saw her in all the she was in Indian outfit for Diwali. And I'm like, gosh, she looks better than half the Indian celebrities in their outfits in Diwali. How did you do that?
Uh-oh, Zarna, you're going to get in trouble.
It won't be the first time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Kelly Ripa, you better watch out. And then guess who's going to be hosting that show once you're in her belly?
Right, because they're famous. That show in particular is famous for doing good by older women.
Yeah, of course.
Kathy Lee. I don't know if you remember.
No, of course.
Yeah. So I don't think they're going to be calling.
But that would be a true revolution.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I lied. 2 more questions now. If you had to deport one American person, who would you deport?
Oh, I mean, but who's going to be willing to take them? You know what I mean?
This
like
is
there's a few problematic people. Like I'm just going to say this. I'm not a rabid Trump hater.
Mm-hmm.
Some things he said made sense to me early on in his first
I understand what you mean.
But I can't take the hate. The division, the derision, the amount of anger and hostility.
Yeah.
If there is another country that's willing to take him, I think he should be sent for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make it nice.
Maybe we could exchange him for Brittany Griner.
And he loves Putin.
That would be a good swap.
Listen.
He goes to a penal colony in Russia.
Or give him a castle in Russia. I don't actually care. Like, they have so many gold gilded rooms there that, like, that seems to be his vibe.
Yeah.
I'm not actually rooting to hate on him in that way. I just don't want him around.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I love that.
It's like a troubled kid at a play date. Like if you have play dates with a bunch of kids and one kid is just determined to create trouble, you're like, this kid needs to go back.
To Russia. That's why everybody was scared to go on play dates at Zarna's house.
No, they're scared for a different reason because my play dates come with math exams. It's true.
Shit.
I've done a lot of videos about it.
Really?
Yeah, because come on. You can't just play. There has to be a spelling bee or a math test. That's just how it is.
I love that. Okay, last question. Zarna Garg, do you by any chance know how I can meet my idol? David Hasselhoff.
Wow. Is he on Cameo?
Oh, yeah. He's on Cameo.
Well, maybe there's a meeting option on Cameo.
So that I would have to pay for it then.
Well, it's the easiest way. What are you
That's
going to
true.
try? What do you want to do?
Somebody's got me a cameo from him, actually.
Do you want to, like, I'd be down for this. If you wanted to go to the beach near his house and do the whole Baywatch.
You want to?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm so down.
Or pretend that we're organic food delivery people or whatever. Like, I'm down for any craziness. That
Okay.
could be another way because these people, they're obsessed with what they eat and stuff. So
This is true.
they deal with food people all the
So we
time.
pretend to be organic food delivery people?
Yeah. Like
In Baywatch outfits.
fruits, vegetables, like something that costs a lot.
I love it.
Because otherwise it doesn't feel real in LA, you know?
Okay, Zarna, shake on it.
Done.
Done. You heard it here first. Zarna Garg and I are going as Uber Eats drivers to David Hasselhoff's house. I love it. Zarna, you are actually the thing that you just talked about wanting to eat. So maybe if I had to answer that question, would eat you because you are a joy, a person who spreads joy, who spreads love and warmth. And I love knowing you. I love following your journey. Everybody watch 1 in a Billion when it comes out in 2023 on a major streaming service that Zarna will announce on her social media. Zarna, where can people find you?
At Zarna Garg everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, OnlyFans, Be Real, LinkedIn, you name it.
And now
I'm
Uber
there.
Eats,
And
too.
now Uber Eats
Yeah,
as a driver.
seamless. Please follow Zarna if you don't already. Chances are you do already and you love her and know her. Go to her shows. She's on tour, a U.S. tour right now. I'm sure that more countries will be added as time goes on. Send her beautiful DMs of how amazing she is. Zarna Garg, you're the best. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Mike Albanese, the best in the biz, the man with the plan. Mike Albanese, thank you for listening. Thank you to Douchebag Steve, our most beloved patron, and our new patron, Craig. Craig, hello. Thank you for joining the Patreon. We love you. This has been great. I'm Lucy Pohl, your host. Please leave us a little review. 5 stars only. Subscribe, rate, review. Follow us on Instagram at Immigrant Jam Podcast. We love you. Goodbye.
If you liked what you just heard, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, recommend to all your friends. And if you hated it, recommend it to your enemies. Thank you for listening to Immigrant Jam, the podcast with me, Lucy Pohl. Have a delicious and nutritious day.